All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's pre-lock show where we'll go through this 5-game slate, talk through the leverage plays, talk through the core plays, and make sure we're good to go. I'll also answer your questions along the way if it makes sense, depending on timing. So we'll see. But guys, good to see you. Cujo, hope everyone's doing well. Rodney, what's up, fam? It's been a decent day. It's been a lot going on, honestly. It's going to be good. But I do feel like this slate, this nice 5-gamer, has been a little bit of a tough stretch. I think a lot of us know that. But we're almost at the All-Star break, guys. Once we get there, we have a little bit of a break. But this slate, let's make it good right before the end. Let's make some money. Kyrie's out. We're getting all the news as soon as we go live, which is, the way it normally goes. I wouldn't want it any other way. We'll talk through it. JM, what's good? Last night slate was crazy. 447 points on FanDuel to take down Attorney. Yeah, points were everywhere. I didn't play last night. That's why I didn't do any content. But I saw the games and they were going nuts. A lot of players, just so many, like 50 plus. Crazy. Clay's out too. It's the last game before the All-Star break. It's going to get weird. But, I feel good about it. Let's jump into it. First things first, we have the Golden State Warriors going up against the Houston Rockets. Tough matchup here for Golden State. Let's talk through who they don't have first. Who's missing? Golden State. No Kuminga. Yeah, that's not new information. The thing we don't like is just the matchup against the Rockets. Fred VanVleet's not playing. I like attacking Fred VanVleet typically. Terry Eason's also out for Houston. Makes things a little bit softer, but the Rockets are just a good defense in general. For me, when it comes to the Golden State Warriors, this is the lowest or second lowest total game on the slate, and I don't like the matchup. So I'm not trying to force exposure to too many guys here. Steph Curry, even in tough matchups, I'm always willing to take a shot on a guy like Curry. And the Rockets have been struggling against guards. So if there's someone, Curry's still viable. He's 9K. We don't have a ton of value on this slate, but I like adding him in the mix. I don't want to forget about him here. Jimmy Butler's another guy. 8K. He doesn't shoot a lot of threes. I never get overly excited about him, but I am always more open to playing Jimmy in tough matchups. He's always been this way. He's good in tough spots. I'm not promising you he's going to be great tonight. I have a 7% min on him, so I'm just making sure he's showing up in my lines. But I like the spot. Darius, what's up, man? Yeah, solo show. B-Dubs has been really busy this week, but hopefully he'll be back next week. Yeah, just us, Larry. What's up, man? Good to see you, David, Dixon. How did Jamal Murray go off on Jokic bobblehead night, bro? Maybe he got inspired. Maybe he wants his own night. That actually could be a thing. Rodney Gobert and Conley now. All right, we'll get there soon. What's up, Cedric? All right. So yeah, I really like, I put a 7% min and it's 7% min on both Curry and Butler. So I don't really like them, but they're fine. Buddy Hield, some model liked, so I put a like on him, but he's not showing up much. Showing up in 1% of my lines. Moses Moody is showing up in 1% of my lines too. Not getting too much exposure to these guys, and just because of the game environment, not the one I want to focus on the most here. For the Rockets, this is an interesting spot because the Warriors are they're a pretty good defense these days. They play at a slow pace. You're usually not getting overly excited about playing the Rockets, but for me, because guys like Fred VanVleet are out, because who else do they have out? We talked about Eason. Like, that opens up things enough here where I'm open. I'm willing to take shots. Amen Thompson was more of a sim model play for me. He's been playing crazy minutes. Every team's on a back-to-back tonight. He played 41 minutes in the last game last night, and then he played 41 minutes in the game before that. I don't know how long they'll keep this going. I feel a little bit better about him seeing more run tonight if this game can stay close because they're going to have a break. But there's definitely a risk that things can get weird here. But if he sees 40-plus minutes of the production he's been having without Fred VanVleet and without Eason, he's a player I want exposure to. So I have a 16% min on him. He's pricey. He's not my favorite play. I probably wouldn't go there in single entry. I haven't made my single entry line yet, but he's still someone I want to have in my MME mix. Şengün is viable. I have a 20% min on him. Main philosophy here is attacking Golden State against or with bigs. That's the position they've been struggling the most there, just because they're a bit small for a team, especially without Looney. And so I want to play a versatile big like Şengün in a spot like this. He's a little chalky at 20%, so he's not a leverage player or anything like that, but I still like the play. And then is Jalen Green showing up? I don't feel like I need him on this slate. I like playing Jalen Green in soft matchups, but he projects well. He's seeing decent ownership. I just like other spots a bit more. Dylan Brooks is more of a sim model play. I have a like on him, and he's still only going up in, oh, okay. He's showing up in 18% of my lines. He's been better lately, and he's only 4,900. He's just fitting into these lines because he's a decent value option. And with the sim model being on him a little bit, let's look at a little closer. 4,900. Dylan Brooks. Yeah, you see that 5.17% in the 7X column. Stands out a good bit for me. Obviously, I like Jose Alvarado more in that price range, but Jose's in pretty much all of my lines already. And we'll get to some of the other value options there soon too. But Dylan Brooks is a fine play. I'm comfortable being over the field on him. Cam Whitmore is showing up in 13% of my lines, kind of like Amen Thompson. He's fine. He's been decent, but not someone I'm looking to force exposure to, so I'm going to be a bit under the field on him at 13%. Jalen Green showing up in 5% of my lines. I don't X out players, so I'm okay with these guys showing up a little bit. It only takes one. That's what they always say. All right, next up we have the Kings going up against the Pelicans. This is my favorite game on the slate. Highest total. Both of these teams suck. Bad defenses. We're going to see some players hit the nuts lineup from this game, guaranteed. Starting off, my original leverage play for the slate was Domantas Sabonis. Pelicans have been awful defensively at every single position. We haven't seen the Kings really go off too much, really, since the trade deadline. DeRozan had a 50-plus point game, which was good to see, that he still has that upside. But everyone else on this team, we haven't seen too much of a ceiling from. But this is one of those spots I'm willing to take a shot on. It's risky. That's kind of why I had that lead up. They haven't been good in general. But again, soft matchup, I'm always going to attack these. So I have a 20% min on Sabonis, 20% min on Monk, 20% min on Levine, and then a 25% min on DeRozan, just because he shouldn't be the cheapest, because he's been one of their more reliable offensive weapons so far. Really, ever since Levine's came into play, they've been using him a bit more. The thing that sucks with DeRozan is he doesn't shoot too many threes, so it takes a while for him to get those points, but he's involved. He's out there, soft matchup. He's going to be a leverage play for me tonight. A little nervous about it, obviously, but I like this team. I like these guys. Monk is showing up in 25% of my lines. DeRozan, 25 over the field leverage play. Sabonis, a little bit of leverage, around 6%. Levine, a little bit of leverage, around 6% there. Keegan Murray showing up in 9% of my lines. Keon Ellis is showing up in 6%. I had a like on Keon Ellis, and he was showing up too much earlier. Let's see if that's still the case. At 4,400, seeing 29 minutes, he's not the best player, but in soft matchups, I'm more willing to play guys like this, and I trust him a little bit more as a value option than some of the other cheapies on the slate. Yeah, Thompsons have been balling. It's been good to see. Good to see. Thompson for me over Green, David. Okay. So let's see. Is Keon Ellis showing up a little bit more? Yeah, now he's showing up around 24%, getting about 9% leverage there, which I like over the field. I like being over the field on the Kings tonight, just in general. So there we go there. And then next up, we have the Pelicans. Same thing here. Awful matchup beautiful matchup for the Pelicans. Kings are god-awful from a defensive standpoint, pretty much at every position. And the interesting thing for the Pelicans, their front court's not that bad. Sabonis and crew, they hold it down. But backcourt, awful, just god-awful. Fox wasn't a great defender, and everyone else they have now still aren't great defenders. From an injury news standpoint for the Pelicans, Zion Williamson is out. That is a big usage increase for two guys that I always like a lot. Trey Murphy, CJ McCollum. A bit of a boost in usage for a guy like Missy as well. And then Jose Alvarado with Murray out. He was great last game. He struggled the game before that, but that was a tough matchup against OKC. And so even though he was really cheap, there was always a little bit of risk there that he might go ghost. In this spot, I expect him to perform. Wish he was a little bit cheaper, but 5K still honestly a little too cheap for him. In regards to what I did in the domination station, I have a 30% min on Trey Murphy. His ownership increased, so that's why I changed that. 20% min on CJ McCollum. He's a leverage play for me tonight. His ownership is also increasing a good bit, so I'm going to increase that to 25. I just want to be a little bit more aggressive tonight just to really emphasize some of these players that I like. You don't have to do that. That's just the approach I usually like to have. And then Jose Alvarado, I have a like one, but I can probably get away with taking that off. When I can, I like to avoid having too many likes. Jose Alvarado is showing up in 99% of my lines right now. Probably don't need that, even though I do really like him on this slate. I think something probably closer to 80 is a bit more appropriate. 85, 90, 99 is a bit much. So taking the like off should get rid of that, but we'll see. Nope, still in 99% of my lines. I'm fine with that. I do like Jose Alvarado enough for that to still be the case. And then Trey Murphy is showing up in 31% of my lines. Again, he sees an increase in usage with Zion Williamson out. He's a little pricey at 8,200. We are not getting a discount, but the matchup is golden. And so he's just someone I want to see show up because I don't want to be on the outside looking in if he's dominating the Kings tonight. CJ McCollum, we talked about. He's a leverage play. He's not seeing enough ownership for that spot. Carlo Matkovic, he's showing up in 13% of my lines. I don't feel overly passionate about him or Misi, so I'm just trusting the DS to do its thing there. And then Bruce Brown is showing up in 1% of my lines. It's kind of like Cam Payton the other night. I'm not going to take him out of my player pool, especially with a guy like Zion out. Wouldn't shock me if he sees a few more minutes, but he's definitely not going to be in a lot of my lines. Not a trustworthy player, that one, even in a soft spot. Next up, we have the Heat going up against the Mavs. Thank you guys for giving me the updates on the news. Looks like Bam is out, which is a buzzkill because I really liked Bam. The strategy is playing bigs against the Mavs because they don't have shit who can guard a real big. Bam, if he was healthy tonight, he would have feasted. And he's someone I would have wanted to be very over the field on. Where is fine. But I'm not as excited about like subpar bigs against other subpar players. I want to see Where show up in a couple of my lines. I'm going to wait on the DS to fully update projections and things of that sort and take Bam Adebayo out of there, but we just got that news 32 seconds ago, so it's going to take us a little bit. But the big thing here is I just want to remember to play Where. Oh, Dixon, that hurts. You bet him, and he's out. That's the one thing that sucks about NBA is just that we don't get the news in time to bet early on things. Whereas like with NFL, you usually know what's going on. Sometimes we won't find out until like 12:30, but at least you have enough time to still bet after that. Sometimes you don't with NBA. But yeah, for the Heat, I don't really like any of these guys. Tyler Hero, we got that fade right 2 days ago or whenever that was, but we still suck that slate. I don't like this team very much, but again, we'll come back to them. With Bam out, there are usage increases that we do need to look a little bit closer at. So we will play some Heat players. For the Mavs tonight, let's see. When it comes to injury news, Dallas, Anthony Davis is out, of course. He'll be out for a while. Daniel Gafford is out. Kyrie Irving is still questionable. Or did we get that news? I think I might have missed that. No, there's barely any Mavs players available. So yeah, we're going to see a shit ton of the Mavs tonight. I'm not going to go through everyone. They aren't playing anyone that really plays typically. Max Christie will be out there. Exum, Najee, Prosper will be out there. Dinwiddie, Hardy. Like, those are some names we've heard before, but we found our value. If you were looking for value, we have plenty of value. And one thing that I always remind myself of when we get value like this, again, the matchup's a little tough against the Heat. The Mavs sometimes burn us in these spots, but I'm still going to attack with them. We need to look at other studs we want to force more exposure to, because now we can afford them before we weren't able to. And a lot of the times in these situations, people forget to force exposure to studs, and that's kind of an easy cheat code on taking down a tournament solo in spots like this sometimes. So one thing I did earlier was I capped Prosper. I'm going to take that 30% cap off of him. And then Max Christie is showing up as a core play. I like that. Prosper's going to show up a lot. Exum's going to show up a good bit. The guys who are really just going to be players I want to see in my lines are Najee Marshall, Max Christie, and Kessler Edwards. Those are like the three priorities. Everyone else, they should show up. Like Spencer Dinwiddie, Prosper, they're in the mix, but they're not priorities for me. All right, next up we have the Thunder going up against the Timberwolves. Brutal game and brutal matchup for both sides here. The Thunder are a great team. Timberwolves are an okay team, but they both are just very defensive teams. It's rare that we see multiple guys going off against these two teams. And so I'm okay forcing some exposure, but it's not a spot I'm overly excited about. SGA is a player who can go off in any matchup. I'm going to put a 5% min on him now that we have some of that Mavs value, and who knows, we might have a bit more value show up from the Heat side of things too. And then Lou Dort is never a guy I love to play, but on a smaller slate, he's more viable. So I have a small 2% min on him and a like. Sim-Model liked him a little bit too. So they're both only showing up 2%. SGA will show up around 5% in the next run. Not seeing a lot of Thunder guys here, and that's because the other spots are just that much better. Big thing for the Timberwolves is that Anthony Edwards is questionable. Him playing tonight dramatically changes the slate. Guys like Null, Rob Dillingham all become more viable than they are right now. Let's see, am I missing anyone else here? Clark is another guy who would benefit in a spot like that. Rudy Gobert is questionable. Or actually, it looks like we have him out. Let me see. Yeah, you all caught me up on that pretty early on. Yeah, we got the news that Rudy Gobert is out. Kessler's out. Conley's out. We don't know about Edwards, though. He's the one. He's going to be a game time decision. That sucks. I think he plays. The fact that he wasn't in that original out, he's just that kind of guy. He'll play more than likely. Could be wrong. Looks like projections didn't really boost the rest of these guys up too much. Again, the matchup's so tough. 5K, 6,500, 7,100. We're not really getting too much of a discount here. But guys like Clark and Dillingham, I'm still looking a little bit closer at. So we'll look at the Heat and the Timberwolves again once we go through the rest of these games. In regards to who's showing up from these games, I'm not getting exposure to any of the Timberwolves right now. I'm going to put a 9% min on Edwards, again, just because we have a bit more value. He's going to go overlooked, and I think he'll probably be lower than 9% with him being a game time decision. Kind of similar to SGA. I just want exposure to these guys. Third highest total on the slate. So even though it's a tough matchup, total's still pretty decent. So I'm comfortable taking a couple of shots here. And I think we'll probably force some exposure to some of these guards too. But we'll see. All right. Next up, we have just a very clear as day, great plays for the Clippers and the Jazz. Dixon said, Josiah, I'm convinced SGA is on the FanDuel payroll. Wait, why do you say that? What happened? Did you miss a bet or something? I mean, honestly, players have been sketchy these days. You might be onto something here. But for me, Clippers against the Jazz, just a great matchup for the Clippers here. We all know how bad the Jazz are. They're a team we pick on every slate, not really overly concerned. The Clippers have been solid. Kawhi Leonard's out, which makes James Harden a much more obvious play. Amir Coffey's questionable. Doesn't change too much. It benefits some of the wings. And then Drew Eubanks is out, but that doesn't change too much either. It just solidifies Zubac as a very solid play. I have a like on both James Harden and Zubac. Again, these are just two guys I want to have exposure to. They're both showing up as core plays for me. Chris Dunn, it looks like I'm going to be over the field on him, which I'm comfortable with. Again, I like the Clippers a lot. And then Amir Coffey showing up in 13% of my lines. If he gets ruled out, I'll have to pivot. And thankfully, like there's guys like Derek Jones, who's 1,000 more, but with a lot of the value we have on this slate, it should give us a little bit of flexibility. But looking at my lines, it looks like I'm actually still using a lot of my salary. But I am forcing exposure to a lot of studs, so it does make sense. There would be guys like Chris Dunn that you can look at if he's in your util spot. But let me look at this. Amir Coffey, it's like 3,800. Well, yeah, he's 3,800. Would I be stuck? Micah Potter. Ooh. Chris Dunn. But that, again, will have to be the util spot. Another Clipper. Batum. Not the worst pivot off of Coffey. He should see a few more minutes in a spot like that. Maybe. I don't know. Coffey's a tough situation for me. Just because I have 13% of him, like right around field weight. If we get that news late, it would put me in a pretty tough spot. Let's see. Let me look at these lines and see what's looking. He's in power forward spot there. That helps. But never in the util. I'm going to keep him for now. I need to look into his likelihood of playing. That's a little risky for last game on the slate. But yeah, Clippers are great. Ben Simmons is someone I'm not looking at 5,400. Bogdanovich, not interested in him either. Both are a bit more viable if a guy like Coffey misses, just from a minutes perspective. But yeah, good spot for them. Jazz, awful. Awful spot for the Jazz tonight, for most of them at least. From an injury news standpoint, Clarkson's out, Sexton's out, KJ Martin's out. Doesn't really matter much. But the guy who benefits the most in these spots with Clarkson and Sexton out is a guy like Keontae George. He's only 6,300. I have a like on him. Is he showing up enough for us, though? Ooh. He's not showing up really at all. Okay. Keontae George, 6,300. Let me look at the guard spot a little bit. This is something I'll do, like when I realize, oh, I liked this guy earlier, but he's not showing up. Why? And it's because I forced exposure to guys like Monk and CJ McCollum. I like them more than Keontae George. I'm okay with that. He is more expensive. What about when I paid down? Did I pay down at point guard today? That could also be why he's not showing up as much. Guys like Davion Mitchell are showing up a lot more. That's with that BAM news, I have to assume. See Chris Dunn. Okay, Keontae George is still showing up in 6% of my line, so at least he's there. He's just not showing up a lot. And I agree. Because the matchup against the Clippers is so tough, I don't want to overly prioritize a guy like George, when I do think the other guards are a bit stronger. Kessler's out. Yeah, Kessler getting ruled out didn't move the needle for me too much. Let me see if maybe I'm overlooking something here, though. Jose Walker Kessler, Utah Jazz. Yeah, I still not loving these guys too much, unfortunately. It's just a brutal spot. Clippers are just really good defensively. Top 10 in every single category at every position. Wild. A lot of just good defensive teams on the slate, which is why I like prioritizing the Clippers. Now we're looking at the Heat and Mavs, but really prioritizing outside of that, the value from that game, Clippers, Kings, Pelicans. And then taking a couple pieces from the Warriors and Rockets, but really building around these three teams is how I'm building most of my lines tonight. And then when it comes to, let's go back and look at some of these games that we've gotten some news. When James Harden is chalk, it's like sticking your hand into a wood chipper. He's on my banned list, so of course he's going to go off tonight. You know what's funny? I used to believe that with James Harden too, but I think there was like a Christmas slate or a Thanksgiving slate a couple years ago. It was definitely a Christmas slate. And he was super chalk because someone was out from whatever team he was on at that point in time. And I realized then, I was like, I'm going to fade him because he always fails when he's super chalk. And he went off on Christmas and I looked like a fool and all my lines sucked. And that was back when I was playing like 10K a slate. And that was a brutal Christmas. It was great with family, but lost a lot of money that one. But yeah, so now I play James Harden even when he's chalk. Long story short. Let's see what happened with the Heat, because quite a few of these guys are showing up a bit more than I thought they would. And you just saw the change in projection there. Everyone sees a boost with Bam out. The guy I just want to see is where, and I don't think I'm seeing him still. So let me do a little bit of digging and make sure we are still good to go with where, or am I crazy? Yeah, it looks like he's not going to be that popular. I don't know. The last time I ignored someone that I thought we should be getting exposure to, I forgot who it was, but they went off. So I'm just going to start forcing exposure here. 5% min on where. Hero sees the largest, or actually, let me just go ahead and double check it. I'm not going to rush it. We have time. All right, so we have Bam, Rozier, Wiggins, all out. I want to see who sees the highest increase in usage when this happens. Boom, 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 boom. This might take a little bit, guys, so bear with me. Miami Heat. No Bam. No Wiggins. No Jimmy. No Kyle Anderson. Who else is out? Drew. Terry. All right, let's see what we get here. How many mins will Ben Simmons get tonight? Does this affect Chris Dunn? Ben Simmons won't see too much run. I don't expect him to, at least. We haven't projected for 20, which even feels a little high, but probably appropriate for this being the game right before the All-Star game. Okay, let's see. So the guy who sees the highest increase is actually Haywood Highsmith. Yeah, I'll take a shot. 2% won't kill me. Where we have him projected, he doesn't really see an increase in usage. I'm still going to force some exposure to him. Hero sees the second highest increase in usage at 3%. And then it's Jaime, who also sees an increase in usage at 2.2%. After that, it's Burks, also at 2.2%, but I'm not going to play Burks tonight. So I put the 15% min on Hero. I just want to be around field weight exposure there. With no Butler, no Bam, relatively soft matchup against the Mavs with them not playing anybody worth mentioning. I'm going to have exposure to him on this slate. I feel like you're getting a little cute if you try to avoid it. 5% min on where, and then let's see, who else does the DS have showing up? Okay, no one yet. But let me rerun. That should change some things for us. I keep feeling like lock has already happened and I'm late, or that lock's at 7:30 and we don't have a lot of time, but we do. So I just have to keep reminding myself, let's just take it slow. No need to rush it. All right. So we see still not a lot of heat. Okay, Jovic is showing up right at field weight, 23%, which I like. He makes a lot of sense here with Bam out. We've seen him do better in these spots. Hero, Davion Mitchell showing up in 13% of my lines. I don't feel overly passionate about him. I'm more open to a guy like that, but I'm not I'm not going to force more exposure to Davion Mitchell on this slate. 13% will have to be enough. Ware showing up in 7%. Jaime showing up in 6%. He's another high usage guy for the Heat sometimes that I just want exposure to. And a softer matchup now than it looks like on paper with all their guys out. And then Highsmith, we have that 2% min on. Don't expect him to do too much. I'm going to change that to 1. 1 feels a bit more right there. And then, yeah, I feel decent about what we're doing with the Heat. Let's look a little bit closer at the Mavs. All these guys are popping now. Every single one. And we felt good about them beforehand once we saw the news come through. But it's a little bit of a shock when you actually see it. Jose Alvarado isn't showing up in 99% of lines anymore because we have more value. I am going to put a 60% min on Jose. I just like him being a core play on this slate. He made sense for me this entire day, so I'm not going to switch up on it now. Prosper, let me look a little bit closer at him before I cap him. I'm really close. I get the projection. I know everyone's out, but 93% is a lot. Max Christie, I wasn't even going to talk about the 99% on Max Christie, but I can stomach that. I'm going to take the like off of him, though, just to kind of see if that drops him a bit. But I'm comfortable having a crap ton of him. But for the Mavs, I need to see just how trustworthy is Prosper. I know we haven't had this situation too much this season, but it doesn't mean... Okay, he's shown some signs of life when he sees minutes. How much is he? 4,800? We need him to score 30. Maybe he could get away with like a 28. When he sees 30 minutes, like he is typically in that 25 plus range, which is promising. Makes me feel a little bit better about him. 24 against Washington, 27 fantasy points against Cleveland, 24 against the Kings, all when he saw 30 plus minutes. Well, the Washington game was 24 minutes, but close enough. They suck. Yeah, I'll keep what I have with Prosper. I am gonna, well, let me see. I'm gonna cap him at like 80. That's still really good leverage. I just don't want him in every line. Max Christie, I'm fine with. He's not a low usage guy anymore. Or as low usage of a guy like he was on the Lakers. But still, I'll just rerun and see what happens before I make more changes. David said, are you playing any Bruce Brown? I have him in one line in that last run. We'll do another look. I don't love him. But I'm not going to X him out either. I just don't do that. I wouldn't go there in single entry or anything like that. Especially with like the Mavs value we have now and some of the Heat guys being a bit more viable. All right, let's see. So Max Christie's now in 97% of my lines. Jose Alvarado's in 83. Clear correlation between less Prosper or more Prosper, less Alvarado. Less Prosper, more Alvarado. There you go. Yeah, so both of them are showing up a lot. Najee Marshall makes plenty of sense here with all the guys they're missing. And then Zubac is still someone I like a lot. Dinwiddie, Kessler Edwards, they're showing up. Trey Murphy, we have a men on. Gonna ignore guys I have men's on. Jovic showing up still right around field weight exposure. I like that. And then Davion Mitchell still showing up around 15%. Ware showing up a little bit more. I like that. Jaime, good stuff. Okay, cool. I like what we have here. I think this is solid. We took a couple of shots on the Warriors, but we don't love it. Took a couple shots on some of these Rocket players. Feel a little bit more nervous about that. Really like the Pelicans. Really like the Kings. The Mavs are showing up the way we want them to. Right, Clippers players are showing up. This is going to be it, guys. I'm not going to tinker too much more with this. I like what I have. JM said, can we say that 30% owned is chalky? Yes. 30% plus is chalky on any slate. Dixon said, favorite guys at shooting guard. I'm stuck at that position. Okay, let's look. Max Christie, Monk, CJ McCollum are the three I trust the most. And thankfully, the DS agrees with that. I like Trey Murphy a good bit too, if you can pay up for him. And then outside of that, it feels a bit more like some dart throws. But those are the shooting guards I like the most, like Christie, Monk, CJ, Trey Murphy. And then Monk's kind of like your mid-range, right? Ew, 7,700. He's mid-range-ish. Max Christie's like your value there. And I usually like to pay down at shooting guard, so I would go Christie. Fade the chalk, that's what Geek says, and I'm doing it. That's okay. JM, I always say there is two approaches to DFS. You fade the chalk, or you eat the chalk and get different elsewhere. I eat the chalk, typically, unless I really hate it, like the other night with Hero. Then I'll cap someone, and then I'll get leverage elsewhere. That's mine. But there's plenty of players who have been crushing the last few days because they've been fading chalk. So you are totally fine, my guy. Dixon, no worries, man. Yeah, y'all hit this like button. We never get enough likes for how many people see the show. So if y'all could hit the like, it's helpful. Just so I always say it, the big guys upstairs keep this show going. I would appreciate it. And like I said, post Super Bowl, we're going to be more consistent. So I'll be around, and I'll be around in the Discord as well. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to reach out. Good luck tonight. We're going to be celebrating in the Discord. It's the night. And then we have a few days off where we have to spend times with friends and family, which is beautiful. A little bit. It gets old after 2 days. All right. Good luck, y'all. See you later.